Let's start with the introductions here. My name is Andre. I'm a customer success manager here with Wrike. I'll be your host for today's session. Today with me, I have Alex Homa, who is a customer success strategic platform lead and is a seasoned expert on Wrike as a product. We'll hand it over to Alex really soon here. But before we do, let's talk about why we're really here today. And the objective for today is to have you understand what it really takes to build a request form for work intake. The reason we're covering this topic today is that there is a lot of efficiency to be achieved with properly arranging your work intake process. You can reduce error, minimize time putting together project structures, and even achieve better reporting. So today we're going to start with the very basics here and look into creating a folder structure to support our work intake process, setting custom fields to capture the data we need, and also we'll look into navigating the form page itself. The session will take about 30 minutes and we'll have a Q&A at the end for you to ask questions, but questions can also come through during the session as well. So make sure you use the Q&A section of Zoom for that. Additionally, wanted to let you know there's going to be a part 2 next week where we'll expand on this topic even further. Now, we're lucky to have lots and lots of amazing clients who are willing to share with the world just how much they like our product and how it helped them with their business. In fact, here's a quote from Capgemini, one of the world's leading providers of consulting technology and outsourcing services. And the quote goes like this: I think it's amazing to be able to have a tool that helps us collaborate and to be surrounded by people that have the same vision and really want to get everything done and done beautifully. The reason we brought this customer up to your attention today is because Capgemini really understood the value of customized request submission process, and the implementation just worked so well for them. If you want to learn a little bit more how Wrike helps teams like Capgemini specifically, we got a deep dive on our case studies page on wrike.com. So feel free to check this out. And yeah, let's, in the meantime, let's hand over to Alex here for the demo.
Andre, thank you so very much. It's great to be here. It's great to be on this side of the table as well, where typically I'm doing the hosting. So it's nice to be on this side and getting to show people how to use things in Wrike on this side of things. So I'll be your host today. I am a customer success strategic program lead. I am based out of APG for the most part. So it's nice to be here with you all at this morning. What I'll do, Andre, if it's okay, I'll ask you to stop sharing and I'll take over and share my screen. While you're having a look at the poll responses there, and I'll let folks know kind of a little bit about myself. I've been working in customer success for quite a while now. I'm working with Wrike for about 5 years. I've worked with a variety of different customers with a variety of different backgrounds, use cases, scenarios, and I've seen some of the best, some of the worst kind of examples that come with Wrike. There's never a worst, but there's always some hairy scenarios, I guess. Now, what I wanted to do was, I guess, ask you, Andre, what are the results there, and what sort of example should we be looking at today? As far as, because it is an interactive session, by the way, we hope to make this have this run for about 30 minutes. It is being recorded, and it is all happening live as we're doing it, right? So your feedback, your input today, we're going to work from it. We're going to build a bit of a workspace, bit of a structure of what we consider to be best practice. And so if you have questions throughout the session, please put them through in the Q&A. Andre will find a moment to interrupt me to be able to ask those ask your questions.
Absolutely, Alex.
Point, Andre, what's the results there of that poll?
Yeah, we have a lot of feedback coming in here for this question that we asked in the beginning. But one topic that comes up more than others is the IT service request. Is that something you'll be able to share with us today, Alex, on how to create one?
IT service request is a good one. I like it. It's kind of in my wheelhouse. So I'm glad that there's a few people that are using it. So, given that session today will be around, if you remember, we talked about having a workspace structure, custom fields that you might want to utilize, navigating the request form page, and of course, questions that you might want to consider as part of that. The first thing that you want to do when we're building out a a request form is be able to actually capture those requests somewhere. Now, there are a few parts to consider to this. So I'm making some assumptions that folks understand what folders, projects, tasks, and spaces are here. But the first thing that you want to do, and I'm going to build this all out live, by the way, I'm going to create a new space for my IT team's capture service requests. Now, I can create a new one. There are some templates that you might want to consider using that come with Wrike. There is an IT help desk request form template that you might want to use by default. But for the sake of building it out, I'm going to hit create from blank and call my space IT service request. Like I said, everything is happening on the fly. I'm CEO Thomas in my demo instance here. Now, you'll want to have, like I said, a bit of a workspace structure that makes sense. And there's a capture role, having an incoming folder or having a backlog folder to your requests is typically the best way to sort of kick this off. Consider it a triage of sorts, if you will, right? There's going to be a triage manager that'll handle your IT service requests. So you'll probably want to start off with creating a folder. And I like to have a bit of a naming convention or a numbering convention that comes with this as well. Call it /incoming or backlog. Of course, this is where all of my bad spelling mistakes come out into play as well. Now, going to create it, use one of the default views. I'm going to make it table for this part. Well, because it's an IT service request, I kind of like using a bit of a board view there. So first things first, make that a backlog and change that. Will it accept my other? Yeah, yes, fantastic. So O1 incoming backlog. Everything starts with that piece. Now, I'm not going to change my workflows at the moment. If you're an IT service request manager, you probably want to have your own specific workflow. Call it, new, call it assigned, call it waiting for a response, something to that effect, in progress, and then completed. This isn't a workflow training session. This is primarily to think about how you might want to structure and think about your workspace to capture your requests. From there, after having an incoming folder, what do we then do? Once we've actually assigned it to somebody, once we've actually allocated it to one of our team members, probably going to want to put it in a folder in a logical categorizing type of folder, right? And so I might have it labeled as O2 request types. Now, in these instances, I'm just going to leave it as table view. I'm not too stressed about changing it to border or anything like that. And then within request types, we might take that a little bit further and literally break it down by the request types. And the reason I might do that is because different folders will then potentially be worked on by different teams. Think of folders as a great way to be able to categorize your work. Okay, so there's types of work will typically be broken down by folder structure or by even types of tasks and custom fields for that matter. There's a variety of different ways of going about this. But to try and make this as simple as possible for ourselves, let's just go making it as request types. And to that effect, I'm going to add a few folders here. I'm going to add a folder, call it platform requests, new platform requests, right? How many times do IT teams get asked for getting access to a platform? Password / bug problems, hardware problems. I'm going to keep saying problem. You say hardware. Another request. And today, what's another request type here? I'm having blanks. We're going to be new platform, password, hardware. Could be
access, maybe access.
Access. Access is a good one. It's a pretty obvious one too, right? I'm not going to get into too much detail. Basic, simple structure of the types of work that an IT team might get on. Now, you can choose to have an O3, call it archive completed folder if you wanted to, and you might have that attributed to the potentially automations later down the fact that when the task changes statuses, it then moves between these folders and to a completed folder if you wanted to. Again, for the sake, in my instance, I am going to maintain that notion. So I'm going to say O3 completed requests. make that a project, however, keep that as a folder. All right. So this is different to a flow, but it's certainly in conjunction with, okay? Your request will land in an incoming folder based on the types of questions that you might have. So there'll be a question around what type of request is this? It'll then land when you change the status into one of these folders. When that request has been completed, you then move it out to a completed requests folder. Now, we can filter all of that later by types of requests, by custom fields that get populated into it, and so on and so forth. On that topic with custom fields, probably want to know, right, what type of requests these are. So in conjunction with the folders, I'm going to go to my requests folder. And in fact, what I'm going to do better still is up at this level, I'm going to head to table view. And I'm going to add a custom field. I'm going to add a custom field and I'm going to label it as request type. And I'm going to make it a single select. And my options are access, hardware, platform, password, bug, and something other, right? Now, I like having colors, so access, password, bug will make that red, scary one. Actually, it's kind of already good to go. I like that. Tidy, hit create. And then you want to think about what other fields might be important that you need to capture as part of a service request. Possibly the region that the team member's working out of, because it might help us kind of prioritize which team member, which part of the world might be able to work on this request. So let's type in custom field, call it region. And for this purpose, I'll just make it a text field. And by the way, there's an option here, I should have touched this earlier, to make this custom field either an account level custom field or to the space. Now, this is important, and I typically tend to suggest people move towards using the space custom fields. And I say that in the sense of this space is going to be worked on by the IT service management team, right? Or the support team, so to speak. These custom fields are pertinent for them to work on, for them to manage. It doesn't probably matter to have them made available to the entire account. So in which case, it's better to keep them locked down to this particular space for this team. So let's hit create there, leave that for that team member. Now, thing to note here, that depending on the custom field you use will also depend on how you might aggregate your data later as well, okay? Text fields have become almost impossible to aggregate. Number fields, yeah, give me all the responses where it was 1, 2, or 3, but again, still very difficult to kind of aggregate that. Numbers are great when to be used for things like just summing up or doing a risk score or something to that effect. Currency doesn't really apply to us here. Percentage, again, doesn't really apply. Single select, multiple select, people use like that. These could all be very pertinent and important to us. Now, what's another kind of important that I'm going to consider here? Request type, region, and what's another kind of important thing here? I'm having a fluff here when it comes to what happens to the space custom fields. I'll come back to that question in a moment. Another good thing to note here with another custom field might be, say, region, request type.
Maybe priority
or
stuff like
priority.
That. Just to be able to differentiate between the levels of maybe how urgent this request is.
You know, that's a really great point, Andre.
Because if it's access, it's going to be like probably super important to resolve as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that's actually a really great point. And to that effect, actually, I'm going to use actually a drop down for that, Andre. So I might actually put, say, a score kind of piece next to it. And I want to say in this instance, just go 1, 2, 3, and I'll explain why I'm doing these as numbers for the moment when we get to actually using that as a question later. But for now, at least anyway, let's make it as 5 being super important, 4 being somewhere there, and so on and so forth. That seems like a color sense that makes sense to me. Anyway, I'm getting too caught up in colors, and that's not the point of all of this. So I'm going to hit create and accept that I've got a very basic format here for that. Now, one of the things that I also want to touch on here is being able to create, say, a custom item type. That will be part of our second session. I'll have that as part in conjunction with this. So for now, let's take ourselves to the actual request form page. Because I have created a space for this and I'm working out of a IT service management space, it might make sense to actually just have this request form being managed out of this space. And so up the top here, there's an option here to go to space settings. I'll click on that and
Quick
head to
question,
request
Alex.
forms.
Sorry, before you
Please.
go too deep into this particular topic, we have a question here from the audience. And the question goes like this. What happens to a space custom field if you move a project to another space? Are they being lost? The question is no, but I'll let you expand on this further.
Yeah, good point. So the custom field is not lost, but it isn't necessarily available at that space level. So the value of that response is kept within this space. It's attributed to that project. It is attributed to that task. It is kept against it, but it isn't made available or visible in that space. I hope that answers that question. And Dave, have I got that right?
Thank you, Alex. This is beautiful.
Fantastic. All right. So let's go and hit create a request form here. Now, for those that haven't been here for a while, it has been given a fresh lick of paint, and it is pretty exciting to see that this is changing. It's been a while. It's been a long time coming. First thing that we want to go ahead and do is call it give your request form a name. So we'll call it IT service request form, right? What is this request for? Write a description, short description here. I'm feeling very creative. Now, before I go on, there's a few things to kind of consider as what are the immediate actions that come with this request being submitted. So on the back of this, I want to do what? Once this request form is submit, I want to either create a task from a blueprint, a custom item type, whatever that might be, or I might want to create a project. So let's assume we're in new products development, or we're working in a project management sphere where you need to be able to kick off a new initiative. You're going to probably want to kick off a project and probably want to kick it off the back of a blueprint. I haven't created blueprints. I haven't created custom item types just yet. So for the purposes of this demo, so for the moment, I'm going to create it just to have it create a task. I'm going to have it so that once it's created, it lands and is new, status of new. Otherwise, if we left that as blank, it'll be the status that's applied to the folder or the space that it comes in at. Okay. So given that this space is just using the defaults, have it land in there as new. I want to have it land in a specific folder, and that is my request. Sorry, my incoming. So O1 incoming / backlog. And at this point, I don't want to assign it to anybody else like by default. I don't want to have it create an approvals process, but at another session, we'll talk a little bit more about approvals of the day. Let's keep that in the back of our minds for sessions in the future when we talk about creating approval for workflows. Could be for a marketing campaign based on size types or the type of work, and consequently, it might require an approval of some sort that comes with it. Or be it a project request where it's at a certain budget and therefore requires a certain level of approval that comes with it. For now, however, going to leave that blank. Go on there, Andre.
Yep. Another question here, and the question is about where the request forms are being created. So we're doing that on a space level right now, but some users pointed out that you could also do that on the account level as well. So what would be the considerations for doing one versus another?
Yeah, good question there. It's kind of a much of a muchness in my honest opinion. But consider an account levels request form being utilized by the entire account in some way, shape. and therefore requires everyone at the account level having access to be able to change and manipulate and work on it. Whereas in a space level, we want it kind of limited to this team working for this team. And by the way, sorry, I should also mention that request forms can also be made available to users outside of a space. By default, for members of this space, this will be a considered request form for the team members of this space. So trying to think, it's probably not a great example. This actually could be a good example for an account-wide custom field, given that we'd probably want everyone in the entire company utilizing it. What are your thoughts on that, Andre?
Right on.
Awesome. Okay, so we talked a little bit about, form sharing, who's got access and visibility to it. In this instance, I want everyone getting access to it, right? Not just everyone in this space potentially or specific users. And at this point, I don't want to make it public, but if I needed to, you could make this request form made available to folks that aren't just in Wrike. So this might be very handy if you're trying to capture requests from customers, if you're trying to capture responses from customers, survey responses from your customers, something to that effect. This is a great way to be able to actually have this request form being made available to folks externally and have work being kicked off in Wrike off the back of that. Again, for the moment, however, I'm going to leave that as internal. Now, question one, I'm wary of time here. So I'm not going to make it as a single select. I'm going to actually make this an assignee field. Sorry, user field. Is there an option for user field? No, I made that error earlier. That's on me anyway. First question, we'll have it as your name. Right. Is this a required response? Does the person have to answer this? Yes. And by the way, you can have this attributed to a custom field so that the person then gets to choose some members and have the user's information input into a custom field as well. I'm going to also add here, say, the single select line of your location. Now, I should hope that if I've done this correctly, there'll be an option here for region, right? With the intention now being that this response that we get off the request form populates that custom field immediately, meaning that your data, when you go to report on things later, is much cleaner and much simpler to aggregate as well, or capture, I should say. Talked about single selects. I think there's another question around that, and I said, did I say single selects? I should have had a single select there. Was it a multi-select? What have I done to myself here now? This is the joys of running a demonstration live, by the way, everybody. You're always going to have some kind of incident. The description and the custom field selected and answer to. Oh yeah, great question. Great point there. Should I have it selected? I saw that question come through there today as I was trying to get through pages. So
all right.
Thank you, Cameron, for jumping in there. And my apologies, just jumping in all of a sudden. Cameron, there is an option now to also have it, but added to not just to the request, sorry, not just to the custom field, but to the description as well. You can choose, it's up to you. It really depends on the person and the organization, how you might want to have that. If you really want to pop out to have it made available to folks, because you might choose that the custom field itself is hidden, right? Maybe you want that custom field only being made available to a set of people. Otherwise, yeah, both in my instance. I hope that answers your question there, Cameron. Now, what I do want to make sure of
Maybe
is
look into custom field section, real quick, and see what kind of
request type. I did put that in there as a single select.
Single select. Interesting.
Yeah. You know what I think it is, Andre? I think it's because I haven't actually populated it yet. So.
Oh, that's a classic mistake.
It is. It is. So let's go ahead, create a new item, new task. And as part of this new task, going to have that field populated so that the system recognizes that we've got a value in there, or at least against one of the tasks. Hardware, region, leave that as it is. And I'm going to populate that one for now. I'll come back to my request form, hit save. Do that notion. By the way, everybody, I've done that really quickly and I appreciate that. So occasionally, if you create a new question and there hasn't been a question of that sort put into or a custom field that's been added there, you might need to refresh so that the system recognizes that there is a custom field there and that you need to make it available. However, even after doing that, use custom fields
It's
as option. Oh, look at me. It's changed over here. Well done, Alex. That is exciting. Even I'm getting used to the new UI. So there is now an option here to choose use custom fields as an option. I use this with the request type. Perfect. That's what I wanted
oh,
to
there we
see.
go.
What kind of request is this? The question
I,
and my responses based on the custom fields automatically populate there. What was that, Andre?
I have a suggestion for the next question, and that also seems to be a question for the audience. So it goes like this. How do we map this with a certain date that's been provided through the form? So essentially, that could be a project end date being requested. So can we map our project in a way that it takes the date from one of the questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So there is a date related question here. And at which point you can say, write your question. And then again, on the right hand side, there'll be an option now to choose whether you apply that to being the start date and due date. And in fact, I'm going to keep that as one of the questions because I want to leave that as date of submission because that's actually going to be my kickoff date for this task. So not just landing in the description, but also in the start date. I hope that answers the question. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
And that's actually very
Okay,
smart too, making that a start date because you can create a custom calculated field and subtract a certain number for SLA. So if you for IT service requests, if you wanna if you have some SLA to stick to, that would be an amazing way to do that. So you always get a
absolutely.
different start date, but then you have a constant for the number of days you want to subtract, and yeah, that will allow you to understand how, whether or not you're on time there with your request or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, there are a stack of other options here as well as importance, but I'm going to add my last question here, which was around I think I had it as priority or something to that effect, or new field, which I didn't put a name against. Write a description, priority, right? And I'll explain why on that when we get into doing a Wrike Analyze session in the future as well. For now, however, I have to wrap it up here at this point. I'm going to keep it saved as a draft. I'm not going to publish it just yet. I'm going to leave it for part two, where we start talking about custom fields and connecting custom fields further, connecting it to custom item types, connecting it to folders, and of course, develop automations based on the back of those requests. I'm going to hit stop sharing there. Before I do, Andre, are there any other questions that have come through?
No other questions, and I think you nailed it. And it was a great demonstration, so thank you so much. I think we're all looking forward for the part two of this, where we look further into how to make this work intake process really efficient. And yeah, in the meantime, let me go ahead and reshare my screen here real quick. Just 1 second while I do that. Yeah, so no Q&A for now, but thank you so much to, actually one last question Sven just submitted. Can I make a specific layout if I post answers to the description? So maybe Sven, you could clarify your question a little bit. What do you mean exactly by
Yeah,
specific layout, if it's possible? And we'll give Sven a minute to answer that. In the meantime, we have another question from Mike. Will part two get into blueprints and adding tasks based on question answers?
will part two get into blueprints and adding tasks based on questions answers? Mike, I think I know where you're going with this question, and if I understand it correctly, I think you'd want to have your responses land within specific questions on the blueprint. We will dig into how to at least have the responses land at the parent task or the parent project at least. but not quite into the sub to its children's tasks. Although, Andre, talk to me.
Yeah, I have another idea. Actually, in fact, what is possible with the request forms is when you have a maybe single select or multiple select type of question, and you can map certain tasks to be created whenever a certain option is selected. So that way you make it
Yes.
dynamic, and that is absolutely one of the possibilities there. So thank you, Mike, for your question there. And we have Sven who clarified the question, can I make bold letters, colors, etc.? Or even say that answers following are put together as one block and then make a separation. So basically rich text, right?
Yeah. So no rich text, I guess that's kind of available to the questions, the responses that come through on the request form at this point. I do like where that request has come from, though. I kind of like the idea, and we'll take that feedback on, but nothing there at the moment, at least anyway. Sorry, Sven.
Yeah.
Um,
I think we're a bit at a time, so we need to move forward with this. And if you want to learn more, absolutely make sure you join our upcoming session for the part 2. And yeah, before we wrap it up, just really quickly here, I want to let you all know about the resources that are available at your disposal here at Wrike. So starting with your account manager, who is always there for you in case you have any questions for Wrike, and specifically topics around anything commercial, right? So you want to expand or upgrade or anything like that, they'll be your go-to person for that. On the product side of things, you have your customer success manager, who's your strategic advisor that will help you maximize your investment and get the most out of Wrike. If something doesn't work as expected, as always, you have our support team that you can always reach out to for any assistance with bugs or things not working exactly as you would expect. There is also a Help Center page that is a great resource for you to learn more about specific functionalities, while there is also a community that is great for learning what's new with the product and ask questions and learn really best practices from fellow Wrike users, which is really, really valuable. And last but not the least, there is Wrike Discover that is hands down one of the best places to learn how to do things in Wrike with a wealth of interactive training courses on various topics that are already recorded for you. And additionally, just want to quickly highlight if you felt like you learned a lot today from Alex here, just imagine how much can be achieved if you partner up with a professional services consultant for a number of sessions. They will absolutely listen to you and will help you get you to your ideal future state of Wrike. Working with a professional services team offers the quickest time to value while providing a personalized and hands-on approach. So reach out to your account manager or CSM to learn more about this. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. So thank you, everyone, for taking your time to join the session today. Huge kudos to Alex here for taking us through the request forms. And stay tuned for part 2. Make sure you go ahead and register. So thank you all so much.
Thanks, Andre. Thanks, everybody.